Alright, so another episode of Why James is the Way That He Is. So, I used to do a lot of drugs, okay? Let me take you back. When I was 21, I worked with Walmart and I ended up getting arrested because I stole. I lost my job. Then my landlord ended up seeing my name in the paper and he ended up evicting me. He was a lawyer, so he didn't want that on his, which I understand. But he went about it the wrong way. But that's not the point. So I ended up moving in with my aunt because I had nowhere else to live, and she was generous in letting me come live with her. And I ended up getting into drugs there. Um, I ended up I had to go to court, and I was put on probation for the stealing thing that I got arrested for. And I did not follow through any of that stuff. I was on drugs and I was doing very bad. And my mom saw that. She'd come down. She lived in New York, and she'd come down and visit every so often when she could, but she worked a lot, so it was really hard for her. But she ended up coming down and she saw that I was really bad. I was a skeleton. I was 149 pounds. I'm 6 foot, so 149 pounds is not good. Is not good. So she ended up talking to my probation officer and getting permission to bring me to New York. But at the time, I didn't know this. There was two houses. My aunt had a house, and then her boyfriend had a house. So we would go back and forth between each house. So they all left the boyfriend's house, and I decided to stay back. And then I'm sitting in the kitchen, and I'm looking out the window, and I see my mom pull in. I'm like, fuck! Get down from the window. I'm like, why is she here? Like, everything's going through my mind. I'm coming off of drugs. Um, I am super freaked out, I'm everything, everything in that situation. So then I don't answer my phone because she's calling me, and I don't answer my phone. I end up ignoring it until she leaves. So then I go out the back door, and there's a crick that's back there that I used to go to when I needed space from everybody, from everything. And went back there and I started walking, I start walking and I start like, what am I supposed to do? Everything's going through my mind. And then my mom calls me back. So I eventually answer it and I tell her that I'm here at the house, at the boyfriend's house, and I am down by the creek. And I ask her what she's doing, and she lies to me because she doesn't know that I saw her, but I did see her. So she tells me that she's with her friend, her best friend that she's got. She's with her and they're out to eat. Well, this conversation gets her enough time to turn around and come back to the house that I'm at. So she eventually tells me that she's there and that she wants me to come out from the creek. So I'm super freaked out. I'm crying probably at this time. And I go out there and she tells me that she talked to my probation officer and that I am to get into the truck with what I have on, what I have with me, and I am moving to New York. At this time, I am bawling my eyes out because, one, when you're on this stuff, you don't want to leave your situation because you know that you're not going to get any more drugs. So the high that you're trying to maintain is going to go away, And that's super devastating for a druggie, They don't ever want to feel that that thing. They don't ever want to feel reality again. They want to keep that numbness going forever as long as possible. And that's what I wanted to do. So I was super devastated. We went and talked to my probation officer, and she ended up transferring me to New York. So then I was off drugs for a little bit. I ended up staying with my mom's boyfriend because me and my grandma did not get along. We still don't get along to this day. I'm the black sheep of the family. She's never liked me. Everybody knows that, everybody can see it. She just won't admit it. But anyway, not the point of the story. But so I ended up living with my mom's boyfriend at the time, and then ended up moving in with my mom's best friend for a week until I can figure out something, until my mom could figure out something for me, some place for me to live. Eventually, I did have to move back in with my grandma, which is where my mom lived at the time. And um, so fast forward again, I ended up getting back into drugs. I ended up getting into cocaine. I did meth back in Pennsylvania, and then I moved from meth to cocaine. And I ended up, there was this guy that come up every weekend from New York City, and he would sell a bunch of bags, and then when he was done with them, or by Sunday, he would leave Sunday, and then he would come back every weekend. So that became a thing. Like, I was off of them for a long time, and then I started to build my tolerance back up, and I did this for I was probably 23 at the time, 22 turning 23, and I did it until I would say 30, because I went from, let me go back a little bit. I forgot a step. To get back into the drugs before the cocaine and the New York City guy, when I got my taxes back, my thing that I told myself was I was going to buy a different drug every year because I wanted to try. I wanted to see that, I wanted to feel that feeling again, you know? So I ended up buying Molly, and then I ended up buying Molly from these college students and that I was hanging out with, and then I liked that so much. It opened up different aspects of my life, and then also my sexuality. It opened that up for me, and I ran with it. But it was really hard to find Molly, so I had to switch from Molly to cocaine because we went to find Molly, but they didn't have Molly, but they had cocaine. So I said, okay, that's fine. So I ended up getting cocaine, and I started doing that for a little bit. And that was when I ran into this guy from New York City, and then started getting it from him regularly for 7 years. And then, sorry, I'm sick. And then I ended up having this really bad experience. I got off the cocaine, and then I ended up hanging out with this other guy that I was hooking up with, and he was dabbling into meth a little bit. So then I started to do that with him a little bit, and I hate coming down from things. I absolutely cannot stand it. So I would go on benders. And well, this one time, I ended up doing all of it in one night, and I had this super crazy experience that it was a 4-day experience. There was a girl in the TV. My TV was off. There was a girl in the TV that was sitting right next to me on my couch, and we had conversations. The one thing that she said to me that stayed with me for 6 years that I had to deal with and I had to figure out was she told me when my mom was going to die, which my mom's fine. She did not pass. She's still living, and she has passed the age that this lady told me my mom was going to die. And I still believe it to this day that if I didn't change the route of my life and kept going down that path, I'm pretty sure that's what she meant by my mom was going to die. So I had to change things up. But then in this 4-day thing, we had a huge conversation. We talked for 4 days. There was a war outside of my house, which was super fucking crazy. And then there was another moment where I was in my room. So I'm naked, okay, because not right now, obviously. I really like being naked. But at this time, I'm naked because when you're on drugs, you sweat a lot. So I just ended up taking off my clothes. Well, I eventually get to that point, taking off my clothes. I'm naked at this time. And I'm in my room. This is nighttime. It's dark, you know. I probably have my. No, I don't think that I have any lights on in the house. I have. Yeah, I don't think there's any lights on in the house. But it's dark, and I'm in my room, and I sit down on my bed, and I'm in the woods. And then I stand up, and I'm back in my room. I sit down, and I'm in the woods. And I stand back up, and I'm in my room. So I'm like, woods, room, woods, room, woods, room, woods, room, woods, room. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? So then I decide, I'm telling the lady on the TV everything that's happening, and she tells me to sit down and just see what happens. So I sit down, and I'm back in the woods. And the crazy thing is there's a window in my living room, which is right next to my bedroom, and I'm right next to a road, so cars go by and you can see the lights come through the window. So I'm sitting down, so I'm in the woods at this time, and a car goes by, and it's crazy that the car lights were going in between the trees, not showing me the room that I'm in, lighting the room up or anything. It's literally going in between the trees, flashing in between the trees, like it's driving down a road in trees and I'm literally in the trees. But anywho, so I'm sitting down and this screen comes up with this video starts playing on it with this little scenario. It's a little skit, probably like 10 seconds long or something like that. And I have no idea why it's doing it, but it keeps replaying over and over and over again. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I don't understand what is happening. And she's like, tell me what you see. Tell me what's going on from start to end. So I tell her, and it's still playing over and over again. And I'm like, I don't get it. And she goes, okay, in this scenario, what do you think you need to do? So I told her what I thought that I needed to do. And then eventually the video would stop, it would close, and it would go around, and then this other video would come up. It did this probably about 7 times. We get to the last video, and the last video is me slaying a dragon. And I'm like, not gonna happen, not gonna happen. I'm naked. I am not slaying a dragon when I'm naked. So I stood up, and I would not sit back down. And this war outside. So let me get back to the war that's outside. It's so weird and bizarre. Like, these people are surrounding my house, the garage that I'm in, and then the house. They're surrounding it, holding hands, all of them. And I can't remember if they're walking in a circle, but they're not allowing me outside of the perimeter of the yard. I'm stuck there, but I'm not going outside. And I look through I'm looking through the windows to see like what is going on out there. And these people are transparent. Like, I can see through them. I can see their outlines, and they're vivid looking, but they're clear. Like, I can see through them. And the crazy thing is when they saw me, it was like I don't know how to explain it. It was like they were doing whatever they're doing. Like, they had this little skit. Like, they would do something, and then they could move a little bit, and then they would reset back to where they were. And then they would move a little bit, you know, do something, and then they reset back to where they were. So when they noticed me, they would, not all of them at once, but randomly, like one would notice, let's say like the one at the window would notice me, and it would jump at me, and then as it was right there, it would disappear and reset back to where it was. It was so fucking crazy. I have no idea how else to explain it. But all of them, like, there was some on the porch that would, like, they're knocking on the door to try to wake up people that were inside. And then they would notice me, and they would start running towards me. They would jump off the porch, and before they hit the ground, they would disappear and reset back onto the porch. And then it would go over and over again until I eventually, like, I had to leave the window because it was freaking me the fuck out, and I had no idea what was going on. So I literally, I turned on the radios because I'm like, if there's a war or something going outside like this, then somebody's got to be talking about it on some news station, on the radio or something. So I'm like turning on the TV, I'm like flipping through the radio stations, I'm like Googling everything, and I'm like, I'm not finding nothing on it. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on? Like, I'm so confused. And then I think that's when I went and sat on the bed. And then that took me from that state of thought to a new state of thought. And it distracted me. And then, I stood up, and then I'm like, I'm not slaying a dragon because I'm naked and I'm not doing this. So I ended up walking around until daylight because it was dark. It wasn't dark anymore. So I knew that I was safe, that I wouldn't be in the woods, because I don't know why. I think I tried sitting down when it became daylight and the sun was in the rooms and stuff, and it was fine. So I tried to go to sleep, and obviously that didn't happen because I'm on drugs, and you know. Anyway, so fast forward again, probably a week later. I don't know if it's a week later, but I ended up doing drugs. I ended up doing meth again, and I ended up talking to six spirits in the garage with me that have passed. And they told me how they died and everything, and about where they were and all this stuff. And then I think that I might have almost died, because I ended up seeing the light. Like, when I tried to close my eyes, I ended up doing more stuff, to try to get all that other stuff to stop. I ended up doing more and more and more. And I laid down and closed my eyes, and all I could see was this. It was like a circle of white light. And I don't know how to explain it anymore than it was the most beautifulest, prettiest thing that I have ever seen in my entire life. And I was smiling at it, and like, oh my God, it's so pretty. But at this moment, like, I subconsciously knew that if I walked towards the light, that I was going to die. Because in every movie and every time anybody ever talks about the white light and walking to it, it's because they passed away. So I was like, I'm literally like, the light's like, let's say it's a circle. I'm literally looking around like, no, I'm not looking at you anymore. I know you're pretty, but I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. So then eventually I ended up getting up. I ended up standing up and walking and then talking to myself, because I know that you cannot breathe you cannot not breathe if you're talking. And I felt like that was why I was going into the stage that I was going into, because I was slowly not breathing. So I started to talk to myself. And eventually, that stage of highness that was putting me in that not being able to breathe experience, I eventually got out of that, because like, the high was coming down and I was coming back to normal, and I was coming back to being able to feel myself, being able to do all of that stuff. So after all of this happened, and this was the time that I worked as a chef, and I was an alcoholic, and I dabbled into meth just a little bit, and I ended up going to work, or calling in to work the next day because I had to work. And then I ended up, the next day after that, I was still coming down from it, and I explained to her the whole thing, and I said I was not going to do it again. And after that, that is when I ended up deep diving into rabbit holes on, there's got to be more to life. There's got to be more to us. There's got to be more to this, because I saw so much stuff that was so real to me that to me, that couldn't have happened if there isn't more. If there's not more dimensions out there, if there's not more other stuff out there. So that is why I am who I am. That is why I research everything that is supernatural or spiritual or not talked about. I will research the fuck out of it until I understand it and it makes sense to me, and it becomes my reality. It becomes me, a part of me. So, but anyway, I ended up getting off of that, and because I said I was not doing that anymore. I was not, like, I almost died, and I was not putting myself through that and everybody that I loved through that anymore. So I went from that to alcohol, because I've never lived, after graduation, I never lived sober. I was always on something. I was either on weed, or I was on alcohol, or meth, or cocaine, or back to meth, and now to alcohol. And I ended up losing my one job. I worked with 19 horses, and I was backing the tractor up, and I ended up hitting an oil tank, and oil went everywhere, and she was pissed. She was so pissed. She ended up calling the cops on me. She ended up, he's on something. He's on something. He's got to be on something. But no. I wasn't on anything. I was just so drunk. And I'm so sorry about that. I apologize. And anywho, I did not lose that job. They told me, the school called me and told me, because I worked for a college, the college called me and told me that if I went to AA meetings, that I could have my job back. But I told them that I was not doing it. I was not getting my job back, because the lady that I worked for, I could not stand her. When she was in a bad mood, which was very frequent, and it wasn't because of me, it was because of things she was going through, that she would throw brooms on top of her office roof. And every time that we ran out of a broom, I had to go onto the roof and get them all off. And I said I was not working for that woman anymore. So they investigated it, and I just ignored them. I just stopped talking to them and all that. Ended up getting a job as a chef, and I was the liability to them. Because I was an alcoholic still. I was drinking all day. When I went to work, I would get drinks from them. When we were closing, I would go down. There was a bar downstairs, so I would go downstairs and I would get super wasted, and I would drive 35 minutes home. If I went home, sometimes I would go see somebody, but they eventually called me and told me that I could not come back to work until I got the vaccination, and I told them that I was not doing that. So they told me that I was not to return until I went back to work. At that moment, that was super devastating, because again, I didn't have a job. But now I understand. I know that I was in a bad spot, and you could have gotten in trouble for it, and I could have made things so much worse for everybody, which I'm glad that you did that. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry again. I apologize. But eventually, a couple months later, I decided that no, not a couple months later. I think it was a year later. I decided that I wasn't going to drink anymore. I was overweight. I was unhealthy. I was a risk to everybody, to my family, to my friends, to myself. And I didn't want to go down that road anymore. I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I decided to make that change, and I am now 3.5 years off alcohol. I am 4 years off cigarettes. I am 5 or 6 years off meth, 7 years off cocaine, and 3 months off of marijuana. And that is why I am the person I am today. That is why I talk about the things that I talk about, and because I want to help somebody else out there, and I want everybody to know that there is way more to us than this life that just keeps putting money into people's pockets that say that they are for us, but they are not. Okay, that's all. Bye.